This is the new Dodge Hornet, which Dodge says is definitely not an Alfa Romeo, even though it was designed by Alfa and is built in Italy. It's Dodge's new entrant into the compact SUV segment, where they have not participated before. So you can think of this as a competitor to things like the Toyota RAV4 or the Hyundai Tucson. This one is interesting because this is the RT version, and it has a plug-in hybrid powertrain. That's potentially the most interesting part of this car. There are two variants. There's the GT, which has a 2-liter turbocharged engine that I drove earlier and is actually very good. And then there's this one, which is going to be late availability, maybe into the summer, something like that, but is a plug-in hybrid, good for something around 30 miles or so of all-electric range. And they're focusing on performance because Dodge is now a muscle car brand rather than, you know, sort of a general-purpose mainstream car company like Chevrolet. They're embracing the electric powertrain and saying it's going to give you lots of oomph. And if you turn on the Power Shot feature, which gives it a temporary boost of horsepower, an extra 30 or so, it can go from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, which is pretty fast for a vehicle in this class. Perhaps the closest analog to this is actually the Toyota RAV4 Prime, which does get around 40 miles of electric range, a little bit more than that, and that goes 0 to 60 in something like 5.6 seconds. So we're in the right ballpark. Now, this has a very complicated powertrain that is designed by the Italians and made in Italy. It has a 1.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine up front, so little tiny engine, but makes lots of power. It's actually a pretty good little engine. Then there is a motor starter generator up front that adds another some 30-something horsepower like that. And then there's a rear E-axle as well, and that is what the big battery pushes. And so right now I'm in all-electric mode, so all that power is coming from the back. So this is an all-wheel drive, but you have the engine and the starter generator up front driving that, and then you have the E-axle in the rear. And so that's a lot of different moving parts powering this little car. That said, I am a huge fan of plug-in hybrids, and it pairs with the 4xe Jeep Wrangler and the 4xe Jeep Grand Cherokee, and also the plug-in Chrysler Pacifica minivan, which has been around for a while. Dodge is just now getting to electrification. It's an interesting one. I'm not sure about the price point. The regular Hornet starts just under $30,000 and actually just a little bit more after destination. This is a $10,000 premium over that, and there's no federal tax credit because it is not built in America, it's built in Italy. So it is pricey, but it's similar to what the RAV4 Prime costs, which when it's all loaded up is close to 50 grand. This is going to be in the same ballpark. Now, why would you get this? Well, it does have a very good look. I love the exterior. It's pretty similar to the Alfa Romeo Tonale, which is what this started life as. It's got some changes. It's got new headlights. It's got new taillights. I really like the look. It's got the little Hornet badge on the front quarter panel, which looks pretty cool, especially in the blackout edition, which black wheels, black badging all over. It looks really good. I like the look of this car, and I think they're going to sell a bunch of them just based off of that. It's a good size. This is a very popular market segment. Lots and lots of competition, which is going to be a little tricky for them. I think on the surface, it's very compelling. It certainly has the power and things like that. The plug-in aspect of it makes it a bit unique, though. You can do plug-in RAV4, Hyundai Tucson. There's a bunch of different options, so a lot of the market is going that way. Interior, it does feel very Italian, though Dodge tried to say, oh, we've changed a whole lot of things to make it, you know, more Dodgy in the shape of this and the way the stitching runs all the way across, which I actually really like. And then the Uconnect system, all of that is custom-ish to this vehicle. Then a lot of the rest of it is rather Italian, Alfa-ish, for a little bit cheaper price than what the Tonale is going to be available for. In here, it doesn't look like the rest of the Dodge lineup in a lot of ways, but I don't think it matters. People are going to get into it, and all that's going to be fine. And I think the reason to buy it is going to be the performance and the look. I'm not sure about the Hornet name. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. They're going to be aiming this, I think, primarily at like people 35 to 55. That's who's going to be able to afford this. They may not know the Hornet name. Kind of wonder if like Neon would have been a better throwback name, since Ford seems to have gotten away with calling the Mustang Mach-E a Mustang, even though that's an SUV. I think they're going to do just fine calling this the Hornet. I have to say, because the exterior is largely Italian, the design is really good, and I like what they've done. This one, for example, has these big 20-inch black wheels with Michelin Pilot Sport tires on it, Brembo brakes. Those are all optional extras that you can get, but it looks really good. It does look sporty. It looks sort of, you know, aggressive and fun to drive. So I'm really impressed with the outside design. design. I like that a lot. Interior, it's okay. So up here, there seems to be like a bit of wasted space with this like shelf that you can't really use for anything, but it's kind of a nice place to put the screen here. I don't love this material. This is not great. I think they kind of cheaped out a little bit there. The steering wheel is good. It's got a very comfortable seating position. It is sporty. So if you don't love a sporty feel, seating, all that, this is probably not the vehicle for you. We're here in Asheville, North Carolina, and we were driving on some interesting roads up in the mountains earlier, lots of curves and all sorts of things, and those were really nice. And the car did very well. It handles well, it feels sporty, and it is definitely one of the sportier compact SUVs or CUVs that you'll find on the market. So if you want something that's a little bit more practical, bigger in the back seat in here is, it's not huge, but it's certainly big enough. This car is fitted with an optional adaptive cruise control and also a lane keep assist. It's not hands-free, but on the highway, it does do an okay job of keeping you in the lane, and you just sort of keep your hands on the wheel, and it manages some of the steering and stuff for you, but it's not a hands-free system like Super Cruise or anything like that. You got the stereo over here. It does not have a traditional like forward to next track or previous track button. Instead, it uses this scroll wheel, which is a little confusing if you've driven a recent Stellantis vehicle with this digital screen, whether it's a Ram or Dodge or whatever. This is going to seem pretty familiar to you, and the Uconnect system here as well. This does support wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, and Uconnect is pretty decent. One thing on the steering wheel, there's this big button here, which on the GT, which has the gasoline-only engine, is basically the sport mode button. That's all it does. This one cycles through the different e-drive modes. So you have an all-electric mode, you have an e-save mode, which turns the engine on and keeps it there so that you can maintain your electrical charge. Then there's sort of a default hybrid mode, which will do the best it can to determine what the most efficient drive mode is, whether to leave the engine on or to use the electric, and that's probably the mode you'll leave it in most of the time. Then there is a sport button down here, and you can press that, and you have sport mode as well, and you get a little more oomph. There's also the power shot feature, which you can turn on, and it will check the system and check the battery and make sure everything's cool and all of that is correct, and then it will activate, and when you put your foot all the way down, it will give you an extra 30 horsepower from the rear motor for 30 seconds, and that's how you get to the fastest 0 to 60 time. Honestly, it's pretty gimmicky. I'm not entirely sure why they have it there other than they can, but Dodge is pretty proud of that, and they were very focused on sort of the performance aspects of this. And then in here, it does feel sports car-like. So if you sort of like that feel, and you like, feels like the cabin sort of in around you and it's oriented towards the driver and all that, I think you'll like this. There's not a ton of legroom here, but that's that sports car feel, for better or worse. This tunnel is rather large. Up here at the front, you have an actual 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter, which in Italy maybe actually comes with a cigarette lighter. You got a USB-A, USB-C ports there. Then you got a wireless phone charger here. One thing that's annoying is that when you put your phone on the wireless charger, it pops up a notice up here that says your phone is wirelessly charging. And it's like, okay, that's nice. You also have a little blue light down there that tells you it's charging as well. The problem is when you're on a twisty, turny road, your phone can slide around a little bit and it keeps popping up that notification. And so I went around the curvy mountain road, and every time I went around a corner, it would pop up a notice saying wireless charging of your phone is on over and over and over and over. And I don't know that there's any way to turn that off. So that's kind of annoying. Got a real gear shift here, parking brake. This is the volume knob for the stereo. That's a little different. So it's down here. Not sure how I feel about that. I don't think I love that. I do wish there was just a regular knob up here, but it's Italian. So that's what you get. Back here, 2 good-sized cup holders, and then a storage bin there. None of the vehicles that are here have a sunroof. I don't know if it's an option or not. I gotta think if it was, they would have fitted it. So what I suspect is Dodge is saving a bit of money there, and that is going to be a feature reserved for the Alfa Romeo Tonale version of this car, which is going to be the plug-in hybrid powertrain only. They're not gonna offer the gas one, and that is part of how Dodge can get the price down to starting just over 30 grand. There are a few different packs that you can get on either the GT or the RT. There's a track pack that adds bigger tires and nicer brakes, different suspension, things like that. There's a tech pack. That's what includes the adaptive cruise control and those features. There's a blackout pack you can get that looks really cool, and I bet the pickup rate on that is going to be super high. It makes the wheels black. It makes the Hornet logo on the side black. It looks really cool. I think a lot of people are going to go for that. It's a relatively straightforward trim setup, which I like. Basically, RT is the faster one, and that's the plug-in hybrid. GT is the gasoline. Other than that, you can basically get all the features across all of them. I don't think there's anything that they've said that is going to be separate between the two. It's going to be interesting to see how this breaks out with the Dodge Hornet versus the Alfa Romeo Tonale. I don't know that the Tonale was going to really make a huge impact on the market for Alfa anyway, but it's certainly an interesting product. Powertrain in particular is very cool. Now that Dodge has this one, I wonder what the split is going to be between Alfa buyers and Dodge buyers, or even if this is really going to make much of an impact at all anyway. That said, there are lots of Dodge fans out there, and probably lots of them have been looking for a compact SUV. This is not a bad choice. And so I think a lot of people are going to buy this based strictly on the design, because it looks cool, it looks different, and the little Hornet badge on the side, that stuff's pretty cool. I'm personally a really big fan of plug-in hybrids, and I've driven like the Range Rover one, and I've driven this one and the RAV4 Prime. I think it's a good stepping stone into electric cars. There's a lot of people who are not ready to get an EV. Sure, there's all the true believers and things, but as we're converting more regular people to the cult of plugs, I think plug-in hybrids are a good place to go, because something like this, 30 miles, that can cover a lot of people's daily drives or commute if you have less than 15-mile commute to and from work, things like that. When you plug it in, it can charge from 0 to full in about 2.5 hours, 7.2 kilowatt charging speed, I think, 7 point something, 15.5 kilowatt hour battery. I do wish the battery was bigger, and you do lose a little bit of fuel tank size when you switch to the plug-in hybrid. So you do lose a little bit of total range, which is annoying, but that's life with having a battery, right? The main problem they're going to have, I think, is that it's a bit pricey, and you can get more plug-in hybrid range with the RAV4 Prime or with the Hyundai Tucson. Buyers of this are going to need to put a premium on performance and design and sports cariness, things like that. And it will be interesting to see whether that market exists or not, but Dodge certainly thinks there is, and they have certainly gotten the muscle car market figured out, because they used to make minivans, they used to make trucks, and they used to make all that stuff. They spun the trucks off into Ram, minivans gone off to Chrysler, and Dodge is now just the performance brand selling Charger and Challenger and Durango, and that's it. And so now they're adding Hornet, and I think it's going to be pretty well received. If for nothing else, then you'll have something that's a bit different from everything else on the market, which people like as well. It's too bad that it is not eligible for any of the tax incentives. There may be different ones in your state that are covering plugins made in other countries, but the federal one is not covered thanks to the new Inflation Reduction Act that only gives tax credits to vehicles that are final assembled in the US. And so that is the Dodge Hornet. I'm really interested in what you guys think of the name. Let me know about that down in the comments, and whether you think this is a compelling plug-in hybrid, or are the other options on the market better. So that is all I have on the Dodge Hornet. If you enjoyed this review, click here to get another one. Thank you so much for watching. Drive safely.